Chapter 23. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up to the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah, all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant, which was found in the house of the Lord. And the king stood on the platform, and made a covenant before the Lord, to walk after the Lord, and to keep his commandments, and his testimonies, and his statutes with all his heart, and all his soul, to confirm the words of the covenant that were written in the book. And all the people stood to the covenant. And the king commanded Hilkiah, the high priest, and the priest of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the Asherah, and for all the host of heaven, and he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and he carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. And he put down the idolatrous priest, whom the king of Judah had ordained to offer in the high places in the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem, them also that offered unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the constellations, and to all the host of heaven. And he brought out the Asherah out without Jerusalem unto the brook of Kidron, and burned it at the brook of Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the common people. And he broke down the houses of the Sodomites that were in the house of the Lord, where the women wove coverings for the Asherah. And he brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priest had made offerings, from the Geba to Beersheba. And he broke down the high places of the gates, where at the entrance of the gate of Yeshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand as he entered the gate of the city. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of the Lord in Jerusalem, but they did eat unleavened bread among their brethren. And he defiled Topheh. This is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. And he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun, at the entrance of the house of the Lord, by the chamber of Nathan-Melech the officer, which was in the precincts. And he burned the chariots of the sun with fire, and the altars that were in the roof of the upper chamber of Achaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of the Lord, did the king break down, and beat them down from there, and cast the dust of them into the brook of Kidron. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mount of corruption, which Solomon the king of Israel had built for the Ashtaroth, the detestation of the Zidonians, and for Chemosh, the detestation of Moab, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon, did the king defile. And he broke in pieces the pillars, and cut down the Asherim, and filled their places with the bones of men. Moreover, the altar that was in Bethel, and the high places which Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, even the altar and the high place he broke down, and burned the high place, and stamped it small to powder, and burned the Asherah. And Joshua turned himself. He spied the sepulchres that were there in the mount, and he sent, and took the bones out of the sepulchres, and burned them upon the altar, and defiled it, according to the word of the Lord, which the man of God proclaimed, who proclaimed these things. Then he said, What monument is that which I see? And the men of the city told him, It is the sepulchre of the man of God, who came from Judah, and proclaimed these things that you've done against this altar of Bethel. And he said, Let him be, let no man move his bones. So they let his bones alone, with the bones of the prophet that came out of Samaria, and all the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel had made to provoke the Lord, Joshua took away, and he did to them according to all the acts that he had done in Bethel. And he slew all the priests of the high places that were there upon the altars, and burned men's bones upon them. And he returned to Jerusalem. And the king commanded all the people, saying, Keep the Passover unto the Lord your God, as it is written in this book of the covenant. For there was not kept such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, nor all the days of the kings of Israel, nor of the kings of Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah was the Passover kept to the Lord in Jerusalem. Moreover, them that divined by a ghost or a familiar spirit, and the teraphim, and the idols, and the detestable things that were spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem, did Josiah put away, that he might confirm the words of the law which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of the Lord. And like unto him was there no king before him that turned to the Lord with all his heart, and with all his soul, and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses. Neither after him arose there any like him. Notwithstanding, the Lord turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations wherewith Manasseh provoked him. And the Lord said, I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, and I will cast off this city which I have chosen, even Jerusalem, and the house of which I said, my name shall be there. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And in his days Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went against him, and slew him at Megiddo when he had seen him, and his servants carried him in a chariot dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him, and made him king in his father's stead. Now Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. And Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Rivlah, in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to a fine of 100 talents of silver, and a talent of gold. And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the room of Josiah his father, and he changed his name to Jehoiakim. But he took Jehoahaz away, and he came to Egypt, and he died there. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money, according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, of every one according to his taxation, to give unto Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zebudah, the daughter of Paraiah of Ramah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. Okay, let's go back to verse 1. Now, we'll remember yesterday and today, or this chapter, is a continuance from the last chapter. And Josiah is the king, and Josiah means God finds. And they have found something. We knew they was going to. And what they found is the book of God. It contains the law. And this was the great book of Deuteronomy, which even proclaimed all these things in prophecy. And we're going to pick this up now. After they have found this book, the men have come back and informed Josiah what this weasel had said, Huldah. And now we're going to pick it up in verse 1. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. So now the king, Josiah, gathers all the elders and of Judah and Jerusalem to him. Verse 2, and the king went up to the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant, which was found in the house of the Lord. So now all the people, everybody in Jerusalem and everybody in Judah, they've come up now to the house of God, to Jerusalem, to this house of God. And the king is read this book in their ears, even the book of the law and the prophecies of what would come. 3 And the king stood on the platform and made a covenant before the Lord to walk after the Lord, to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all his heart and with all his soul, to confirm the words of the covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. So we see now the king, he stands on the platform, and he reads the book now into the ears of all the people, and he makes a covenant now that he will keep the commandments of God and his testimonies and his statutes with all his heart. And then we see the people have stood to this covenant, and that means they are in agreement. They've stood up, and we knew God was going to cause this, because he has prophesied this very thing. And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest, and the priest of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the Asherah, and for all the host of heaven. And he burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them into Bethel. And we're going to see now, this would be this gift that would be presented in the last time. End of days, even this gift here of these ashes of those that have went astray from God, even those that have worshipped Baal. And this Baal is this destroying of idolatry, and this Asherah was that which shaded now. That's which causes shade. This Asherah is this step up in progress, and it's a step up and forward. And what it represents is this altar they've made for themselves, and it also blocks the truth of God. Well, he's took all this stuff now, and he's hewn it up, or he burns the ashes outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, this place of darkness and gloominess, and he carries the ashes of them now to Bethel, and Bethel is the house of God. 5. And he put down the idolatrous priest, whom the kings of Judah had ordained to offer in the high places in the cities of Judah, and the places round about Jerusalem, them also that offered unto Baal, to the sun, to the moon, and to the constellations, and to all the host of heaven. See, and we find that's what they was doing. See, God had brought this great evil on them, just like he had done to the children now and the descendants of Noah. See, he had done the same thing to these children of Israel now, because he had caused them to worship all the host of heaven, these Lord's images they made for themselves, the sun, that which is gives light, even the moon, the lesser light. See, they worshipped everything you could worship. 6. And he brought out the Asherah from the house of the Lord outside Jerusalem unto the brook of Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the common people. So now he brings out this Asherah out of the house of the Lord, and this is that thing, and what it represents is this altar, this fake, this thing that causes shade, however you want to look at it. And he takes it outside Jerusalem unto the brook of Kidron. And this brook of Kidron, or brook, is where the little gentle stream flows now, and it creates a place where one could drink. And this Kidron means this place of dark gloominess. And he takes it there, and he stamps it down as small as powder, and casts the powder thereof upon the graves of the common people. And we'll remember now what this represents is this powder, this dust that he sprinkles now over to the common people, because this has fell upon them of what this thing has represented, and what it's caused them to fall under this. All these people, these graves, these people that have passed on under this Asherah. 7. And he broke down the houses of the Sodomites that were in the house of the Lord, where the women wove coverings for the Asherah. And these women, once again, represents from man, even these teachings, and that's what these coverings represent, these teachings, these coverings they give to cover for the Asherah, to decorate it, to make it beautiful, and whatever it takes to attract someone to it. These Sodomites represent these places where they've set up that men might go into men, that men might teach men the ways of men, see, and that's what it truly represents. And these are the dogs that God has turned now upon these people. 8. And he brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priest he made offerings from Geba to Beersheba. And he broke down the high places of the gates that were at the entrance of the gate of Yahshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand as he entered the gate of the city. Joshua, he's on a run now, and he goes through, and he brings all the priests out of the cities of Judah and defiled the high places where the priests had made their offerings. And this defile means he breaks them down, he destroys them somehow in a way that is detestable unto itself. From Geba, this is that hill, this high place, this place that's lifted up, to Beersheba, even this well of this oath, is even this sevenfold oath that they will make. And he broke down the high place of the gates that were at the entrance of the gate of Yahshua, the governor of the city. And these high places of the gates, these high places represent these places where they go. They are evident in themselves. These high places that they make for themselves, and they stand there at these gates, and this is the place of decision, at the entrance of the place of decision of Yeshua. And Yeshua means salvation, for he's the governor of the city. He's the one that watches the city, that keeps over it, that tells what to do, and which are on a man's left hand as he entered the gate of the city now. And this gate is the place of decision of the city. This city represents this place where you would go. Left hand. Now, left hand is the hand which you would hold your shield with, and this represents the covenant, an agreement of man. See, it would be on the right hand now from the throne looking out of the gate, and this would represent work. But it's on a man's left hand, and this represents the covenant or agreement. 9. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of the Lord in Jerusalem, but they did eat unleavened bread among their brethren. So, and we're talking about these priests of that city. They didn't go up to the house of God now in Jerusalem to offer on that altar, but did eat the unleavened bread among their brethren. And this unleavened bread is that which has no leavening. 10. And he defiled Topheh, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or daughter to pass through the fire of Molech. And this fire of Molech represents this understanding, this teaching of this king they've made. Even now, to make your daughter or son pass through this fire, to teach them this same thing. And he's defiled Topheh. And Topheh is that place of the fire. This is that place of the fire, that fire of Molech. Topheh is the dump. Topheh is this place of the garbage pit where everybody would burn their garbage and stuff. And what it represents is this place where they dance around the fire and they spit at God. 11. And he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun at the entrance of the house of the Lord by the chamber of Nathan-melech, the officer, which was in the precincts, and he burned the chariots of the sun with fire. And this is what Yoshi had done. This was what God did when he found these things. See, and he made it known. These horses represent the strengths. These represent the strengths they had given to the sun. This what brings enlightenment at the entrance of the house of the Lord by the chamber of Nathan-melech. Nathan means the gift of the king. This king gift. He's the officer, and this officer represents something that's been, we'll just say, made seedless. And he burns these chariots of the sun with fire. And these chariots represent that place there. They stand there and they think they got the reins in their hand and they're controlling this chariot of enlightenment. He's going to burn them with fire now. And this fire is going to be the truth going out of the law of God. It's going to devour them. 12. There's understanding. And the altars that were on the roof of the upper chamber of Hakaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of the Lord, did the king break down, and he beat them down from there, and he cast the dust of them into the brook of Kidron. Once again, this brook of Kidron is that brook of darkness and gloominess. And Manasseh is one that's caused them to forget, or he's made these altars there in the two courts. Even now witness these two courts of the house of the Lord, these two periods, these two times, these two places where he's called the children together. And those altars that are on the roof of the upper chamber of Kaz, those that God has taken hold of and God has seized, and he's using them for an example. This upper chamber they've made, and the altars they've made there. See, God's going to use these all for an example now, that you can understand if you will. If you don't, you're just refusing it. 13, and the high places that were for Jerusalem, that were on the right hand of the Mount of Corruption, which Solomon, the king of Israel, had built for the Ashtaroth and the detestation of the Zidonians, and for Chemosh, the detestation of the Moab, for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon, did the king defile. So you will see that Josiah, Yoshia, God is found. God is just destroying now. These high places, these are those places they make for themselves to go. These are those places they've made for themselves. God never said, hey, build these high places on every corner so we can go there. He said, don't. You will not do after these other nations in the way they have worshipped me. For after every abomination have they done after their God. And that's what they've done today. And we'll see now. These high places that are on the right side of the Mount of Corruption, even the Mount of Abal, where God told them to set these law and plaster it and make it clear. Solomon set up there every altar and abomination that could be built. Solomon, this peace, this one of peace, because remember, God told you he was going to come in by peace. He built there the Ashtaroth, this idol, this detestation of the Zidonians, these fishermen, this thing that shades. And for Chemosh, the detestation of Moab, these that are like their father, Chemosh. Chemosh is where they used to take these young virgin girls and offer them up now in a live sacrifice, these virgin daughters. And they represent these understandings of men. They are offered up. They have no understanding. For Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Oh, Ammon, these are the nations, and these are all the nations, and this represents this. Milcom, this little godhead or this king head they made for themselves. And what they did, and what it is, it's either a live head, they've cut off somebody and dried it up there and made it, set it up there now to gaze at. This head representing the authority of, and in its mouth, this little gold plate. They'd stick it in its mouth now, and they'd write the name of their God on it. And it would be as if it had the word of God in its mouth. They'd bow down before this image and this thing. Nastiness. It's an abomination, God said. Don't do this thing. Open your eyes. And he broke into pieces the pillars and cut down the Asherim and filled their places with the bones of men. These pillars God commanded you not to make. They're everywhere. They've stood them up everywhere. All these things, these symbolism. And he cut down the Asherim. There's a plural of these Ashers, these altars, these things they've caused to shade. And he fills these places with the bones of men. These bones of those, this bones represents the essence, this what it's made of, because that's what these things are. They come from the hands of men, and men have planted these things and mailed them up. God's going to destroy all this. 15. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel, and the high place which Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, even the altar and the high place he broke down and burned the high place and stamped it small to powder and burned the Asherah And this is that thing they've caused a shade there. And we remember this great sin, this high place in the house of God, that Jeroboam the son of Nebat, even this one that all this regards, it's in regard to him. Jeroboam, the one who God caused to contend with the nations, and God caused the strife in the nations, who made Israel to sin, these that were scattered among all the earth. God caused this. And this altar that he made, and even in the high place, they broke it down. And they burned that high place and stamped it to powder, because that's what's going to happen in the end. And Joshua turned himself, and he spied the sepulchres that were there in the mount. And he sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres and burned them upon the altar and defiled it, according to the word of the Lord, which a man of God proclaimed, to proclaim these things. And we'll remember that prophet when he told Jeroboam, when Jeroboam made that alternative altar there, God went and said, this altar will be split and torn, and it split that hour. And the ashes feeding them manna until the day they would come into the promised land. See, this is the mighty hand that God used. This is the mighty hand. And that door, that blood that he put upon the doorpost, it represents the law of God, is what it represents. God commanded that you write the law on your doorpost and on your door gates, and keep it. And this is the Passover we're talking about. This Passover unto God, when we remember how God delivered us out of that place of enclosures 22, for there was not kept such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, nor all the days of the kings of Israel, nor the kings of Judah. And it would be that great Passover, even of the end time, that shall be proclaimed. 23, but in the 18th year of King Joshua was this Passover kept to the Lord in Jerusalem. And we'll see, 18th. Now it's a new beginning, 8 and 10. This new beginning for the law and this understanding of that what God has found. This word, even this law that has been found, that the people have been caused to forget. 24. Moreover, them that divined by a ghost or a familiar spirit, and the teraphim, and the idols, and all the detestable things that were seen, spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem, did Joshua put away, that he might confirm the words of the law which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of the Lord. So, now we see that all these that divined of ghosts, all these soothsayers that thought they knew something, and they go against the teachings of God. God said, don't do this. If you need to know something, God's got all the answers, see. They go to these ghosts and these familiar dead and these things that no one wants to know about. And this teraphim, these are the utensils they use. These are the instruments that they use to perform these ceremonies of these idols, these detestable things. All this is just a sick thing to God. Now we'll see, he does all this so he can confirm what the words of the law says that are written in the book. That Hilkiah, God's portion, my portion's God, found now. 25, and like unto him was there no king before him, nor that turned unto the Lord with all his heart, with all his soul, with all his might, according to all the law of Moses, neither after him arose there any like him. So we remember Hezekiah. Now, he even destroyed these things more than Hezekiah did. He went after them with a great zealousy now to break down this idolatry and all this that was in the land. Notwithstanding, the Lord turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations wherewith Manasseh had provoked him. And we remember Manasseh, this one who did all this, and raised all these images up, even in the house of God. Manasseh, this one who causes to forget, one who causes you to forget who God is, tries to make the law of non-effect. 27, and the Lord said, I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, and I will cast off this city which I have chosen, even Jerusalem, and the house in which I said, my name shall be there. So, we remember, God said he's going to cast Judah out. Now, we know Israel's done been cast out. They've done been carried off. Yeah, they ain't no more. They've been carried off and scattered out. And we remember the Syrians have come down and they've tried to take over Jerusalem. God sent them away. But now the prophecies have done come. Babylon's going to come. This king of confusion is going to come down and take everything. 28, now the rest of the acts of Joshua and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? Yes, they are. Because this is an important period of time. And there's a lot of evidence of this time. In the days of Joshua, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria. So there was war in those days, and this Pharaoh Necho, this is that great house that he has smitten. He goes up against this king of Assyria, this one of the Asherah, at the river of Euphrates. And this Euphrates is this river that breaks forth in fruitfulness, even in abundance of fruit. And when they get there, Joshua has gone up against him, or against the king of Egypt, and he has slew him at Megiddo. And Megiddo is this place where the nations shall be gathered, or the multitudes are gathered. Even it's known, we can call it the pavement, and even this place that where they will be made white. 30, and his servants carried him in a chariot dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Joshua, and anointed him, and made him king in his father's stead. So Joshua has been killed. He's went up into battle against the king of Pharaoh, this great house of the land of enclosures, and he's got killed there. And they brought him back in his chariot, and his chariot represents that place where they stand and control the rings. He's dead. They brought him back from this place where the multitudes are gathered to Jerusalem, this place of peaceful teaching. They bury him in his own grave. And the people now, they're going to take Jehoahaz, and Jehoahaz means now God has seized. God has taken hold of. Just like he would take hold of a little child trying to teach it now, and he's the son of Joshua, and he's anointed him, made him king in his father's stead. And Joshua, we remember, was the one God finds. And he's found the troublemaker. He's taken hold of him. 31. And Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. So now Jehoahaz, this one God's taken hold of, he's 23 years old now. Redemption is going to be complete in this understanding when he begins to reign, and he's going to reign for the complete 3 months, this complete time of the lesser light in Jerusalem over the place of peaceful teachings. His mother's name is Hamutul, and that means my husband's father's in the midst. And that's what we're going to see now. My husband's father is in the midst. Would be my father-in-law, according to a woman's view, and she would be the woman that represents from this. And she's the daughter now of the teaching, or the teaching of, the daughter that which comes from Jeremiah. Jeremiah is those appointed of God, is one appointed of God. He's from Libnah, this place that made white. And, that's the same as Megiddo, this place of the pavement where all the people are gathered. God's going to make an example, and God's going to make them white in understanding. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. So now Jehoahaz, he's going to return to the old ways, even the ways of idolatry. 33. And Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem. He put the land to fine 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. So now we see Pharaoh, he's come in, and he's put him in bands. He's fettered him up, took him captive. And we remember now this new beginning of the law, that's what it stands for, this bondage. And we see that that's what's happened. They've returned to bondage through this idolatry, and this great house has smitten. And he's taken him now to Riblah, and this is that fruitful place, even in the land of Hamath, this land where the walls are joined together. And he finds the land now, 100 talents of silver. And this 100 talents now is the judgment of these little circles of silver, that which has got to pass through the fire. And a talent of gold, and this is that circle of gold. Those judgments of the lesser silver is the greater understanding of it all. Even the big circle. 34. And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Joshua, king in the room of Joshua his father, changed his name to Jehoiakim. But he took Jehoahaz away, and he came to Egypt, and he died there. So now Pharaoh Necho, this great house that's been smitten, he takes Eliakim, that which the mighty one is raised up, and he puts him over instead of Joshua to be the king, and he changes his name from Eliakim to Jehoiakim. So his name goes from being the mighty one is raised up to being now God has set up, and even this that can be seen from a distance. And God wants you to have understanding now, because it has been set up that you can see from a distance, and many of you probably are beginning to. But he took Jehoahaz away, and he came to Egypt, And he died there. And this Jehoahaz, which God has seized, he brings him to this place of enclosures, and he dies there, 35. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh. So now Jehoiakim, this one that God has raised up, this one that God has set up, he takes the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, even the great house. But he taxed the land and gave the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. 35. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, of every one according to his taxation, to give to the Pharaoh and the co. And we'll see that's what Jehoiakim did. See, Pharaoh had made him a tax master over the people, and he taxed the people. And he took the silver and the gold, and he delivered it to this Pharaoh and the co, this great house that shall be smitten. 36. And Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Zebudah, the daughter of Pariah of Ramah. That's who he was, Jehoiakim, this one that God has raised up. He was 25. Now there's redemption and grace in this understanding. When he begins to reign, and he reigns for 11 years, and 11 is disorder. Why? The law has a beginning, and this in the beginning of the law there was disorder, and that's what 11 stands for. This disorder and understanding in Jerusalem, these places of the peaceful teachings. His mother's name is Zebudah, and this is those that are given. She's the daughter of Pariah, the ransomed of God, and they're from Ramah, this high place. 37. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all his fathers had done. And so we're going to see that Jehoiakim continues. This is idolatry. They've returned. See, God has returned them again to idolatry, because God's going to make a full end so that you can have an example. And that's what it's really all about. Now we're going to go now to chapter 24.